Ms. Ferrari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think what's happening here today for folks watching is, you know, an unfolding of what we see repeatedly since my time being elected, but I'm sure since longer than I've been here. And it's a deflection from accountability. And I mean, that's ultimately the big conversation that has to happen on a bigger scale. And you know, it's kind of ironic, right, that you have Mr. Maloney, who sits on this committee, and he writes a tweet that says, you know, is the leader gagging you? And it is no secret to the public that there are 24 Liberal MPs who have signed a letter asking for the resignation of the Prime Minister. And this is the tie-in to this when we're talking about this motion is that it is a lack of accountability and deflection across all fronts. And that comes from the top down. And, you know, that is what we see repeatedly over and over again. I want to point out when we're looking at anti-Semitism, and, you know, I look at Mr. Housefather, who has stood up as a Liberal MP trying to fight this against a caucus that has blatantly insulted him, quite frankly. And, you know, we have a colleague, Marty Morantz, who is just a fierce fighter for the Jewish community. There is data that reveals anti-Semitic hate crimes are up 400%. Since when, Madam Chair? Since Justin Trudeau took office. That's since when. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the rise in anti-Semitism since Justin Trudeau took office. Let's talk about sexual assaults that are up 75% since Justin Trudeau took office. Let's talk about sexual violations against children that's up 119% since Justin Trudeau took office. Let's talk about forcible confinement or kidnapping, up 11% since Justin Trudeau took office. Let's talk about indecent, harassing communications, up 86% since Justin Trudeau took office.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Mr. Maloney.
I haven't the slightest idea what this has got to do with the motion that we're debating right now.
I don't either, quite frankly. Can you tell me the relevance? Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to speak on the motion that we are requesting 30 sitting days in order to study the bill before we send it back to the House.
So if you can repeat that again to me, Madam Chair, for clarity for my own self, what's the bill that you think doesn't have relevance to what I'm saying? The motion, sorry, that doesn't have relevance to what I'm saying.
The motion that you are speaking to, or supposed to speak to, is that the committee request an extension of 30 sitting days to the period of committee consideration for Bill C-270. If that motion does not pass, we risk not being able to study this bill here in committee.
So I think everything I've just said is extremely relevant, Madam Chair, and to my member across the way. Let's study a bill that is going to help change the criminal code so that you don't have violent repeat offenders under legislation that the Liberals put in place, C-75, where it is a catch and release, where the most heinous of criminals, who I know the member opposite, Mr.
On a point of order.
It's just, my question is she suggesting that she's supporting the motion, in which case we could just go to a vote, because we're actually providing the opportunity to Mr. Viersen to be able to speak to this important bill. We're actually trying to save it by giving the extra 30 days because he has been so busy. That's what he says. But if we're going to talk about transparency, what is he actually trying to avoid by not appearing here today? And I think that is the question. So if Ms. Ferrari is suggesting that she's going to support us in allowing us to do this important study of this bill, which we agree, then maybe we can just go to a vote.
That's debate.
Oh, well.
Ms. Ferrari.
Madam Chair, I think what they're missing is they're stuck on a person coming to testify at this committee, which the clerk must invite. Okay, that is standard procedure. What we are saying in the Committee of Justice that under this Prime Minister, under these Liberals and NDP coalition, crime has never been so rampant. So yes, we would like to study bills that are going to help Canadians feel more safe.
Point of order, Madam Chair. This is verging on ridiculous.
I'm going to clarify here. I've already said, and I will say it again, the sponsor of the bill, this is not a member, this is not a witness from the outside. This is the sponsor of the bill we're talking about, who has already been invited by the clerk. So just so that there's no misunderstanding here or any mixing of words, the clerk will re-invite the sponsor of the bill.
Re-invite? Has he already been invited?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
And we have been seized with this bill since May 8.
Okay.
So
thank you for that. And so I think what I would like to circle back to here is that this isn't this is the games that you see repeatedly by the Liberals. And so I want to read this because this is really what it comes down to. They actually don't care about public safety. And I'll read the tweet by Mr. Maloney into the record. Justice Committee is ready to study Arnold Bierson's private member's bill. We'd like him to appear to speak to this bill before the deadline. Arnold, will you appear, or is Pierre gagging you because you keep fighting against women's right to choose? And this is the classic Liberal way. Oh, we're losing, so let's talk about abortion. And the last thing I need, Madam Chair, through you, is some Liberal man to tell me about my right to choose. What we are here to do is to point out the justice failures of this government. And this is the reality that they have.
Point of order.
And so they laugh.
Point of order.
okay, before you go to the point of order, the clerk is. Mr. Vierson was invited on September 26 to appear at the meeting of Monday, October 7. So I don't know how many points of orders I have here, but Mr. Brock?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The display of several members on the opposite side of this committee room is disgusting. Laughing and mocking the commentary from a colleague on a very important issue is absolutely disgraceful. So I want to raise that firstly as a point of order. Secondly, they should be showing a modicum of respect, and instead of catcalling from the other side of the room, allow my colleague to finish her intervention. They too will have the floor at some point in time, and we will extend the same respect. That's how this committee should be working.
I guess I don't know if I'm supposed to respond to that, but I don't really see any more mocking from one side or the other. I think I've seen enough on my left side as well. But in any case, I'm going to go back to Ms. Ferrari. I raised the point of order
because they were talking over my colleague. That's why I raised the point of order.
Mr. Bruson?
If I may say, I was actually just agreeing with Ms. Ferrari that I don't want a man like Mr. Vierson deciding my right to choose. So I was actually showing support.
Okay. Ms. Ferrari, please.
So what I was saying at the beginning, where, you know, obviously the Liberals want to interrupt me. I get it. They don't want to hear this. They don't want this public. They don't want the record of their Prime Minister, which, quite frankly, most of them don't support. All you have to do is go to question period and see the empty benches and see what's happening. You know, that is the reality. And so the tweet of gagging is so hypocritical. When you have literally a guy, listen, this is the former parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister who was on record just days ago saying this man is a full-blown narcissist and a dictator. Like, that is what you're dealing with. And then this Liberal member has the audacity to say you're being gagged by our leader. I want to talk about the bill at hand because this comes back to the public safety crisis that's been created in this country underneath the Liberal and NDP. So the bill is the enactment amends the criminal code to prohibit a person from making, distributing, or advertising pornographic material for commercial purposes without having first ascertained that at the time the material was made, each person whose image is depicted in the material was 18 years of age or older and gave their express consent to their image being depicted. And, you know, that comes back to everybody says, what's the relevance of what you're talking about? This is the Justice Committee, and the stats, just go outside. This is what I can't stress enough, Madam Chair. So, you know, they've made their position clear of what they're trying to stop here, and it has nothing to do with justice being served in this country. It has nothing to do with the public safety crisis that has happened under the watch of Justin Trudeau and his incompetent ministers. That is the reality of what we're saying. Trafficking in persons is up 84%. And there is a direct link to all of this and young men being exposed to pornography. So of course we want to study this. So I'm going to come back to the anti-Semitism that my colleague, Mr. Brock, has put forward to in a dilatory motion, that we get back to studying this, because clearly the Liberals have no interest in actually delving into the justice that has been just destroyed in this country and the public safety that's been destroyed. And I want to reiterate again, and I hope that we could have the support of the folks across the way, because what we've seen is we've had two studies happening in this committee on Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and clearly these members of Parliament, much like the Liberal whole caucus, are not talking to each other. And again, I will read this into the record. Data reveals anti-Semitic hate crimes are up 400% after 9 years of Justin Trudeau. 2/3 of all hate crimes are against Jews in Canada. When will Justin Trudeau finally take anti-Semitism seriously? And that is a direct tweet from my friend and colleague and fierce Jewish advocate, Marty Morantz. And so that is what we would ask here today for the dilatory motion of that, to get to it. And, you know, one final piece I want to leave this, because I know I have a lot of victims and survivors watching at home. Mr. Maloney wrote a tweet. And he said, "My heart is with all the victims who are going through unimaginable pain. It is disgusting to see their tragedy used to score political points. We all need to work with law enforcement to prevent these crimes and support victims. This has nothing to do with Liberal policy." Well, Mr. Maloney, I'm not sure how long you've been here, but every single thing has to do with policy. That is the law, and that is politics. And these politics and these policies, as you've heard directly from survivors, are killing women, children, and innocent people on the street. So for you to say this has nothing to do with Liberal policy, through you, Madam Chair, shameful, shameful.